Hello, everybody. This is a Vermont U.S. Senatorial Forum. We have three candidates here. We have Matt Hill, we have Steve Berry, and we have Mark Stewart. Mark Stewart. Okay, there we go. There's only a very simple rule here. Your clock is going to be set to 25 minutes. Each one of you will have 25 minutes of talking time. And you don't have to answer one question. You don't have to use all the time up in one question or all the time up in multiple questions. You just raise your hand when you want to talk and we'll start your clock. I'm going to start out with a simple question to begin with, or I think it's simple, maybe it's not. And it's about oh wow, just a minute, please. It's about Vermont jobs. I'd like to know what each of you had to say about bringing well-paid jobs to Vermont. Any volunteers to start? Raise your hand. Okay, I'll pick one. Matt, you're here. Thank you. Go.
Hi. Should I get elected, I would love to bring some federal jobs to the state of Vermont. Those are well-paying. I've been told by a Vermont higher election past candidate that Vermont people do not like the federal government messing around in their state. I disagree because the federal jobs pay a good bit more. They will spawn off taxes, and they will help the economy. I would also like to bring industry, but industry is not very kind to being in Vermont as well as some other states. So to attract the type of people that they want, which are often young people, especially with the tech sector. Young people like cities, New York City, Boston. So that's kind of tough to do. People working out of having the ability to work out of their houses and working remotely, that can certainly help Vermont. I typically gave out pens with my website on it to get people to look at my website. My website is matthillforsenate.org, and I went to most of the fairs and all around to different cities. I happened to be in Burlington a week ago and tried to give out my pens to people working construction on big construction projects in downtown Burlington. And I went to 3 or 4 of them, and each one said, but I live in New York. I won't be of any help to you. I'm wondering, why are people from out of state doing state jobs or city jobs? We need to hire Vermonters for the higher level jobs. It'll give Vermonters a bigger income. It'll give the state more income due to payroll taxes, and it just makes smart sense.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. Mark, you had some comments.
Matt, we agree and we disagree on some things. You are right that young people for the last really 30 years have been more attracted to cities, and that's not Burlington. That's New York, Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, DC. They're also attracted to the jobs in the cities, not just the culture or the more mates that they might be able to meet up with potentially. It's the better jobs. And industry pays potentially even better than the federal government. But here's my solution. It is to lessen the federal government's ties with industry. Because of so much entanglement of late, the Biden administration has colossally aided big pharma, big tech, big engineering firms, big defense. It makes the salaries for going big even higher. How are Vermonters, talented young people here, going to stay when the biggest we have is Ben & Jerry's? Good for them. But when we can't compete because the federal government is driving with its ties so many people away, my solution, lessen those ties. And generally, you'll see I'm a fan of less federal spending in the first place.
I would like to add a comment as well.
Go ahead, Mark.
One of the things that would solve two crises that Vermont has is the building of developments, housing developments. We have a housing shortage here and apartment shortage. The Vermont legislature has put in far too many regulations for construction firms to operate profitably. And those rules need to be lessened for us to have a thriving construction business. Not everybody wants to go to college. Not everybody wants to learn tech. Some people want to do trades. Some people want to build things. This will solve two crises at once by doing something like that.
Thank you very much, Mark. Steve, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I would. First of all, I want to say that this is a really healthy conversation. And I'm glad I can be with these two gentlemen and that we can have this opportunity. Because what you hear in the media and what we are experiencing in America is treating American citizens like we're enemy combatants. And we're just not. So we need to wake up and say, you know, my neighbor isn't somebody that I hate. A person that is running for the U.S. Senate is not somebody that I hate, even though they may take a different position than I do. These are colleagues, these are friends, these are neighbors, and we try to do our best to help each other, and that's the best type of thing we can do. So my idea about jobs in America, in Vermont, is not to go federal. It's to go local and to support local in a much more robust way. And you do that by making Vermont a livable place. Right now we have $13.67, which is a minimal wage, although McDonald's is now giving, I think, $15 an hour. We couldn't even get up to that figure in Vermont legislature. And when I was in the Vermont legislature back in 2014 to 2016, one of the things that we knew at that time was that it costs over $22 to live in Vermont at that time, and is approaching $25 an hour to live in Vermont right now. So having a livable wage changes everything, because then the society becomes egalitarian. That means that everyone is basically on the same playing field. If you don't have that, then what you're having is a caste system where there are very wealthy people and very poor people. And in Vermont, we have a lot of poor people. So one of the ways to combat the problem of workforce is to actually incentivize people to want to work. If I'm going to make $13.67 and I can only work 38 hours a week in that particular job that I have, because they won't give me 40 hours because then I would get benefits, then I have to work another job. It actually would take me at $13.67 to work 68 hours a week to get a crummy 1-bedroom apartment. That's what it would cost me. And I have an awful lot of other bills that I would have to pay, and I would not be able to afford them. So a livable wage is the first thing to do, and that would restore a sense of community in Vermont, and people would want to come to Vermont to live, and people would know that they could thrive in Vermont under the current conditions. That's just not possible with an unlivable $13.67 an hour wage.
Thank you very much, Steve. Mark, you had.
For the 6th time in 24 hours, I think I'm going to chime in with Steve. The toughness of low wages has gotten compounded. I need everyone to realize this, by Obamacare. What Obamacare did was made many employers who were marginal about full-time employing somebody versus part-time. They were subject to Obamacare if somebody works 30 hours a week or more. Well, They're not subject if they're hiring, quote, part-time. So that means a lot of people who might have gotten full-time offers, good salaries, better benefits, instead, thanks to Obamacare's limitation, go part-time. That means you need two jobs. Get 25 hours a week somewhere and 29 hours a week somewhere else. And that's not a way to build a career. Everyone knows that it's 40 hours a week or more, showing that you're successful, driven, wanting to build up. You can't get that on a 29-hour-a-week job. You might get that when you've got the full-time. And Obamacare, once again, a federal mismanagement, is responsible.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, as a follow-up question to the topic, I think it's somewhat related, and it's about affordable housing. And it's getting very expensive today. Do any of you candidates have something you would like to say about affordable housing? Any takers?
Well,
Go
Matt,
ahead.
someone addressed affordable housing already. I think affordability happens in two ways. I can afford it with a same income, and I can have a higher income and things are more affordable. Let me address both. At the same income, I do believe that living small, if you don't have the money, may be needed for a few years. I mean, in the 1950s, it was routine for two kids to be sharing a bedroom. And a family of six might have just one bathroom. To expect that, to say, we demand a 5-bedroom house for myself, wife, and 4 kids, may be beyond expectations. And we can then build small. We can build even cheaply, whether big or small, with fewer regulations that constrain construction, constrain and benefit who? Lawyers, consultants, environmental engineers that might be unnecessary. At times they are, but let's limit them to the necessary and not foist it on building costs automatically. Finally, on the upside, it is that I'm one candidate who would like everything to be more affordable because you make more. If the price is here for housing and your take-home pay is significantly better, things are much more affordable. And how do you get take-home pay significantly better? End Social Security. It's taking 15.2% of people's wages. Let them invest or save for themselves. They can know better what to do with their money. It's going bankrupt anyway, so youngsters are not going to see any of that money 40 years from now. Cut taxes at the federal level. If there's a community project that you believe in, you have money to personally fund it. You have money to be part of organizations that do community work even better. The federal budget should be cut by 80%. Defense and courts is all that we should be doing at the federal level because we can do every element of welfare better ourselves.
Thank you, Mark.
I disagree with that.
One of the things that I've noticed in this state versus other states is Vermonters like a lot of land. And if you have 5 acres or 10 acres to get over the humps of building and permitting with the state, it's not real efficient. Neighborhoods need to be built. Or housing that's much closer together, because that's the only way you're going to get water systems in, sewer systems in, the economies of scale of a neighborhood and bringing services to a neighborhood. From what I've seen, they're very small part of Vermont has these neighborhoods. Houses are generally pretty far apart, and that costs a lot of money. The Vermonters don't have the luxury to have all kinds of land in order to be cost efficient.
Thank you, Matt.
Steve, but I'd like to get in after Steve.
First of all, Act 250 addressed to some degree what you're talking about. The new proposals after 50 years, they went in there and they have addressed that to some degree, Matt. And they want to bring into city centers in Vermont, give them more opportunities, less restrictions to build, etc. But I want to go back to what Mark said. We paid into Social Security, and Social Security was never meant to pay all the bills, but it was meant to be a cushion for people to allow them to actually regain something from the taxes that they had spent or they'd given to the government. And so I don't think that it's fair for those who have paid into Social Security to have that abolished. I think that the Republican plan was ridiculous to actually privatize everything, because we know where that's gone, because we can look at our private banks and see what the Federal Reserve has done to us. We can see what other banks have done to us. We can see that banks get bailed out by the government, and then you have the housing crisis. And how many people lost homes during the Obama administration? 5.1 million. How many? Maybe you have the figures. I don't have them anymore. All I know is that there were millions of businesses that went under during COVID, but we had millions of people thrown out of their homes during Obama's years. And those people could have actually stayed in their homes if we hadn't bailed out the banks. So I'm not into this helping the government do a better job with the resources that we already give them. But for crying out loud, at least let us recoup some of what we've given them through Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And we paid into it, so why shouldn't we get it out?
Well, now I get to disagree with both of you. Mine are so on Matt's contention about Vermonters don't have the luxury. We do have the luxury. If you've worked hard and can afford it, there should be no restriction on how much land you can buy.
Agreed.
Okay, and please don't let the environmental protection goons, the agencies who want to restrict how you use your land, we don't want that either. If you have land and you're not offending other people, you can't go say, oh, that bird can't migrate far enough and restrict what somebody can do decently with their land. For Steve's contention, I'd like to just clarify, I don't think we're at odds. I am not saying end Social Security for people who've paid in. We have obligations that we have to make. I'm saying make it optional from here on. And if you opt to stay, hey, I expect benefits, those benefits that have accrued should, in theory, be available to you. But especially young people who should be almost certain. I mean, it is less likely that there is a Santa Claus, okay, than there is a magical way to have the same benefits paid to the 20-year-olds who are being extracted now at 15.2%. Let them decide how to use it. And for the older people who would like to opt out, give them a fair market opportunity. If you're 68 years old and expect to live 20 more years, say, okay, 88 is your expectation, you're probably due in present value to make $400,000. Okay, doing $20,000 a year for 20 years. If you had the chance to get $250,000 now, good chance you'd take it. At least let the market decide. $250,000 now. You've paid in. We owe you eventually. And if you want, because you have something better to do with that chunk of money now, or maybe you don't have anything better to do, but you don't trust that you're going to get the payments for the next 20 years, you should be able to opt out.
Yeah, I think that
Mark,
that's.
Matt,
I would tend to disagree with that as well. I'm a fan of Social Security for people because I'm a financial planner in the CPA, and for what I've seen, most people do not know how to manage money. A lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people live month to month. I think it's a good thing that people can expect a check to come in every month and know when that money is coming in. The Social Security fund is technically going bankrupt between 2030 and 2035. We should have made adjustments 20 years ago, but the can kept getting kicked down the road. It won't be going bankrupt, but you will, as far as right now, probably get about 90% of what you are expected to get. It won't be a cliff going from 2,000 a month to 0 a month. I believe in raising the percentage of Social Security for one, both the companies and the individuals to maybe 8% per individual or company. But one of the big things is I think it should continue. Right now, it will stop. You will stop getting deductions for it once you hit 168,000. That pretty much only affects the rich people. This is a way of taxing the rich a little more without it being too painful. Yes, they won't like their paychecks having that deduction stop, but it's a way to bring more money into the Social Security system.
Thank you, Matt. Go ahead, Mark.
Matt, I want people to use you, financial planner, and people like you, because almost certainly you will get them a better return. It's a certainty if you use a half-brained, and you're a full-brained guy. Help people privately so they don't have to rely on the government. And it is going bankrupt. By every definition, except the government's, by every business definition, a party that cannot pay its expected debts is by definition bankrupt. We don't have the manpower, unless you want to try to tax people at 60% rates, to make up for the colossal shelf that we've built up of debt.
Thank you, Mark. We're gonna move on to immigration.
Steve had something.
Wait a second.
Steve had a comment.
The United States,
Go ahead.
the United States government does not have a wonderful perspective on its own citizens. They do not care about we the people. And that's the reason why there have to be changes in government. Because if they're putting their priorities into $883 billion this year going into the military budget, but we don't have enough money for Social Security, for health, and for the welfare of individuals who pay taxes, then we are a bankrupt people, but bankrupt value-wise, not in terms of money only, but in terms of values. What do you value? Do you value war more than you value your brothers and sisters, your neighbors, the people who are in your town? Do you value actually having a healthy environment? Is that critically important to you? These are issues that impact individuals, and Social Security is one of them. But privatizing everything is not the way to go. We have paid taxes. We need to have some return on what we paid in. And Matt knows that as a CPA. I know it as a pastor. People are suffering and they need to be able to be helped, but they paid into the system and they worked hard and they should get something out of it. And it should not be taken away from us by the government.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any other comments? We're going to take a break. We want to solve a little problem here with our sound. So would our technical expert turn around and put us in break mode? Hello, gentlemen. We're back and we're going to start this part of the session off with immigration. I'll read a question here and it is somewhat related to the previous topics. Immigration is a concern to many citizens with our open borders. Do you have any policies or idea suggestions, whatever, that would help Vermonters with respect to the present immigration policies? I know Mark doesn't like the word policy, but it's a good word. Matt.
I think the border should be closed immediately. And then check with the best and the brightest minds on how to best reopen it. We need to get people the ability to, if we want them in there, if we want them in the US, we need to get the ability to get people in without the 10-year wait. I have a couple of clients that it took 10 years, one from Venezuela, and two from Argentina, to get green cards or excuse me, to get citizenship. And one, the dad of the Argentine can't even get to be a citizen because he doesn't know the English written language well enough to pass the test. But we need to close the borders immediately because we are just having too many people flow in and it's costing us far too much money. Thank you.
Steve was up next, but I do have a comment.
I just think that that's been deliberate, Matt. I think that having the open borders just the way it is has been deliberate on the part of our government. And you know, if Biden had actually wanted to build back better, which he said, and all of the people who were schooled by the World Economic Forum and the WHO, they're all talking about build back better, build back better. If you listen to Trudeau, if you listen to Macron, if you listen to any of them, it's all build back better. Well, nobody built back better. Nobody. It's all collapsing. All these governments are going south, and that's by design. So you open the borders, you cause all the problems in foreign countries, and you bomb the heck out of them. Then they're all in influx. They're all looking for asylum. And the next thing you know, you've got open borders and people are streaming in. Why the heck didn't they put money into infrastructure in the first place? If the government cared about Americans, then the Americans would have jobs building the infrastructure, your federal jobs, Matt, the jobs that we would like to see so that we have a strong infrastructure. But that didn't happen by the government. So now what happens is you're pitting people who are coming across the border against Americans. And that is something that is by design, in my estimation. Otherwise, there would have been a really clear way of letting people in. There would have been serious consequences paid to people who actually came in illegally and didn't seek asylum by going through the direct processes that were there. There weren't sufficient people at the borders. And so what we have is a big, big mess on our hands because it has been so totally mishandled. And the people that get blamed are the immigrants, and some of them that are coming across are very legit. Others are not. But, you know, what are you going to do except make changes, big changes? We need to have immigrants still, but we have to have them be immigrated in an orderly fashion and not have it the way it is right now. That's my take.
Thank you, Steve.
Mine had a clarity question for Matt. I couldn't tell if your Latin American family that you cited, because he hadn't learned English, was that going to be a good thing to still admit him or to keep him out because of it?
He didn't learn the written word of English. He understands verbal. So if somebody was able to give him a verbal test, he could most likely pass.
All right, then he'd be in sync with me.
These are some of the hardest workers that I've ever seen, harder than most of the Americans I work. One is a surgeon who works for 12 hours a day. The other are landscapers who work more than 12 hours a day and at least 6 days a week, if not 7. So they're extremely hard workers. I'm thrilled that they're in the country. The surgeon, when he got his citizenship, texted me as soon as he got out of the meeting with or as soon as he got the proper credentials, he sent me a photograph from the building. It was very thrilling for me.
Well, then I'll reclaim time and say, this is the kind of immigrants we should want. And our immigration system is a mess because it does keep them on hold for way too much time.
That's right.
These are people who probably have the American creed, that individualism, working hard, and some element of e pluribus unum, that we are part of something together that is special. And unfortunately, our opponent, Senator Sanders, he and almost every elected Democrat doesn't believe that America is special. It is. And my prescription for who should be in here is 8 words. End government welfare. Enforce laws and establish the American creed. I guess that's 9. The American creed of e pluribus unum, of tolerance, of individualism, of respecting free markets. And probably 90% of those coming to the country now are in that category. Basic English, though, is an element of the American creed. You want to be part of it. You don't want to be separate. And it's not that hard to learn basic English. We are right to keep people out who are not willing to take that step. Because for gosh sakes, Indonesians with a different alphabet learn English. So certainly someone from a Latin American country who has the same alphabet as ours can do at least the same just as quickly. It is right for us to decide that there's some people who are more deserving. And it's not everyone. We can't admit everybody. There needs to be some standard. I do think we need to take probably 6 months of a moratorium. I mean, no more visas for tourists, no more student visas, no more across-border visas, so that we can figure out who are the types that we want and where should we draw the line.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to say that when you have a non-policy really, or a non-enforcement on the borders, what you're doing is you're basically establishing some criteria which things become even more unstable. And when the instability is heightened, you can actually then call out the problem, and then you can impose martial law. The government has a possibility of imposing martial law when they say things are out of control. That's a government that is way, way too powerful. And it needs to go back to the citizens so that citizens have opportunities on the local level to determine their futures. But I think the deliberate nature of not fixing the immigration through the borders, etc., is a destabilizing factor, and that allows for there to be declaration of laws that are not going to be in the benefit of the American populace in the future.
I'm not for martial law. I am for the laws that we have being enforced. And that's not against any citizens here. It's against those who are about to invade us. Invade, I know, is a strong word. I say that deliberately, though. Those who are about to invade our culture and not be part of us deserve to be ferreted out and turned away. Those who want to be part of our culture should be speeded up and put in without this 10-year wait. They might need to be, instead of put into urban areas that might be overcrowded, it might be helpful if they started for 5 or 6 years in places that are underpopulated. I mean, there are parts of the country that desperately need good labor. There are towns that are shrinking. And yet, don't even call it second-class citizenship, but okay, so you can't go to South Central LA anymore, not for 5 years. Establish yourself a few miles away where you're more wanted and you can thrive. Probably is a good policy for immigrants that get started here.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, the next question is going to be about crime. There was a recent congressional vote to deport aliens that were convicted of serious crimes like murder and rape. As far as I understand, the vote was not a positive. They did not convict or agree to deport these criminals. I'd like to know what your position is on this issue.
Ask Bernie, but I'm pretty sure that he and the elected Democrats have no problem with, oh, it feels like he's a nice man and we're going to overlook things. You got to have standards, at least the standards that we have on ourselves, and probably a step higher. You were born somewhere else. We can't trust yet And that means, I'm sorry, you're not welcome here at this time.
Matt,
I agree pretty much with that statement. If you're gonna come here and commit crimes, we don't want you. You're costing us money, you're costing us time, you're costing other people the chance to be part of our group that we want to be here. That's it.
Steve, do you have any comments?
Yeah, my perspective is a little different. My perspective is from the Woody Guthrie song, you know, some people rob you with a handgun, others with a fountain pen. We're being robbed by fountain pen guys. The biggest criminals in our country are the ones that have the fountain pen, the ones that are making laws or not making laws that are benefiting the population. That's really some of the major crimes. Look at you allow the Chinese Communist Party to come in and be next to the largest landholder in America, next to Bill Gates. There's something wrong with that. And Bill Gates is using this for farmland, but Bill Gates is on record saying that the biggest problem we have worldwide is population. So why would somebody who wants to grow food also want to control the population? So you got a lot of stuff going on like this, and nobody wants to talk about it because, in fact, it's too difficult and bleak to talk about. And so it's one of these things where, you know, it's overlooked. So we talk about people with doing mean things and awful things and horrible things on the local level, and then there's a macro level going on, and nobody's talking about that. And I think that's a mistake. But Bernie's not talking about it, and most of the legislators aren't talking about it because they're all part of that process, and they're all part of the powers that be. And that is a domination system. And that's what America is right now. It's everything that we were warned about by Dwight David Eisenhower. It's all come true because we are a military industrial complex and everything goes back to the military. We arm ourselves to the teeth. We're angry at each other. We don't act as neighbors like we should. And it all goes back to the wrong values that we have. And that's the reason why I'm running for the first place, just to bring some of these topics up, because frankly, it's not going to be handled by Bernie, and certainly not by Deploy Malloy, who's been part of the military industrial complex for his whole adult life, from West Point all the way through Lockheed Martin, and being employed by them. And now the little people in this Senate race, our voices are closed out. We're not even allowed to speak with those two people, because they represent Republicans and Democrats, and they're part of they're a duopoly. They're a uniparty, and we're not part of that uniparty. And we are a different voice. We have different ideas. We want to fix what's wrong, and they basically have to support the corporations that are getting them elected, and we're not doing that.
Thank you, Steve. Any other comments? All right. Health care. We used to be number one many years ago, number one in healthcare. We are no longer there. The last time I looked at a poll about healthcare and where country stood, it was somewhere in the 20 number. We were that low. And that might not be actually accurate, but it is, we've gone downhill. So we'd like to have a comment or your opinion on what you could do about healthcare for Vermonters.
Would you like to go first?
No.
Okay. Well, I won't be going to the insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies and tell them, your prices are too high, bring them down.
Thank you.
I will bring my own personal actuary, who was on my team. There are only about 13,000. The actuaries run the insurance companies and determine what the insurance companies are going to make. Very smart math people. They take about 7 or 8 years to get through their tests, and most people fail out. It's that difficult. There are only about 13,000 life and health actuaries in the United States. I'm bringing one that worked for one of the top 3 insurance companies. There are 13,000, like I said before, everything from what they call students to the people that run the insurance companies. My actuary worked for the same company, one of the top 3 insurers, for about 20-25 years. And that actuary designed a good percentage of the products for 20-25 years. Vermont's not a rich state. I guarantee you, Vermont has not had the opportunity to have somebody like that to consult with. At a very minimum, if I get elected, they will have that ability to talk to somebody with that kind of talent. It's kind of like having a Michael Jordan or Tom Brady on your team. If what I think would happen, should I get in there, is the state of Vermont will reduce their healthcare cost millions of dollars a year and up to tens of millions over my term. I am no expert at health insurance, but I have the people to talk to. Mark or Steve?
It's such a complex issue that I'm going to ask people to go to my website where I've addressed many facets of healthcare. It's stewartforliberty.com. It is very complex. I am not ducking it, but it's hard to do in 2 minutes. I'll give it 2 words: free market. The free market provides everything good for us. And when we limit it, especially in the 2 biggest and most important areas, healthcare and education, we don't get as good results as in groceries, which are almost never limited. And we have plentiful foods from various places at all kinds of price points. Let's try the free market and arm with one other thing: charity. Free market and charity for those who can't afford all the free market stuff in healthcare. That's my favorite combination.
Thank you.
We hear a lot from Bernie about bringing the price of pharmaceuticals down. And okay, that's fine if you but that's really not the issue. If you really want to fix America, then you have to make America healthy again. So I'm into MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. And you do that through nutritional education. You do that through healthy food. You do it through creating your soils that are healthy, your water healthy, farming healthy, no pesticides on your product, so that people aren't sick all the time. We have the most sick country in the Western world, and it's not getting any better because we have food that's not nutritious. And so you have all of these problems, and they're very, very costly. But the solution is not having pharmaceutical companies give us more drugs in the diseases that we have because we've eaten toxic and poisoned food that is making us so sick. No, what we need to do is we need to rely on small farms like we have in Vermont. Those small farms should be producing, and then those small farms should be supporting all of the different institutions we have, whether they're hospitals or nursing homes or the prison system or education, so that all of the food, the healthy food that's grown in Vermont, can go to healthy Vermonters. And that would be my option. I would say less big pharma. They do a little bit of good. There's a lot that needs to be said about the public option, and I believe that we should go in that direction in the future. But let's make America healthy again, and that's through having regenerative agriculture, good food, healthy food for people, nutritional education, and take your vitamins. And they don't talk about that, but the food industry is really being run by big ag, and that's really the reason why we're all sick.
Thank you, Steve.
I would like to
Go ahead, Mark.
add one thing to my thing. So I do believe in some form of universal health care. That's what I will add.
Thank you, Matt. This is a follow-up question related to health. We are just about over the COVID season, and while it was going on, the COVID season, we'll call it a season that lasted several years, there were mandatory vaccination requirements for kids to go to school, some to go to work in various places. Certainly many government facilities mandated mandatory vaccinations. And we're talking more specifically about the mRNA type vaccination. I believe Vermonters would like to hear your opinion on whether you think mandatory vaccinations are viable or not.
Steve hasn't gone first.
Steve.
So
Oh, yeah, absolutely wrong. Mandatory vaccinations were foisted upon us. Wasn't it interesting that Biden and Harris said, "Oh, I wouldn't take a vaccination," and then when it was fast tracked, and Trump said he had said that he's going to take a vaccination, then it changed and they were elected, and they said, "Oh, yeah, go get your vaccinations." Now, we didn't even have a chance to take a look. It wasn't even out of the box, and we're supposed to take vaccinations. Why didn't the people like Levine, Dr. Levine in our state of Vermont, offer alternatives? Why was it only vaccination? You never heard one word about anything except vaccinations. Nothing. So I'm for health freedom, bodily autonomy. You do what you want. If you want to take 15 vaccines, great, go ahead. Take all the boosters you want. Give the 72 vaccinations to your children if you want. Go ahead. But I would say that is a right, bodily autonomy. You should have the freedom to choose, not have a mandate given to you by the government to say you have to test. I would say absolutely no. I would fight for health freedom. And I am on the list, a very, very short list in the state of Vermont that's for health freedom. And I love the idea that we all have an opportunity to choose how we want to have our bodies and our choice, not the government's choice. And because they manufacture an idea. It's all about the individual having a choice.
Mark.
Vermonters lost at least 4 restaurants in southern Vermont because of mandatory vaccinations. Let employers decide for themselves. Let customers decide whether they want to visit a shop that is staffed by people who are masked or vaccinated or behind a shield or not. The biggest defect in Trump's 4 years was his not coming down on state agencies and state bureaucrats that were imposing things on our free will. That can't continue again at state or federal level. US Senate should have been the first ones to object, and Trump should have backed it up. I am ambivalent on the education side, and that's worth a visit to Stewart for Liberty as well, because I'm not a fan of public education. So if most or all of K through 12 education is privatized, then if a school says, gee, we don't want kids with a contagion coming to school, whatever that contagion, cold, COVID, something new, then that's their small agreement. And you don't have to be part of that school the next semester if the parents are in disagreement. Small is good. And I will say that over and over again, because it actually helps Vermont and it helps every enclave that wants to take more control back. We lament how little control we have over government, which is out of control. How little control we have over big corporations. Mr. Kemp, you were saying today how you can't get through to them. Big corporations inherently leave you with less control over the service you want, over the products that you want to get, over complaining with any sort of effect. The virtue of small deserves to be reasserted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any follow-ups? All right. We're going to move on to an entirely different spectrum here. We're going to talk about climate, would like. I'd like, we have a question. What is your position on the geoengineering and its effects in climate? I first would like to clarify, geoengineering is where Meehan is making changes. He's controlling the storms or whatever. So that's pretty much what geoengineering means. Any comments? Any takers? No take.
I don't,
Oh, Steve.
I just beginning to look into this a bit. But it hasn't been a focus of mine over the years. I do know that there was geoengineering done during the Vietnam War. I believe it was called Operation Popeye, but I'm not sure. Happened in 1966. I mean, 1966, 1967, there was an act that was passed in government about geoengineering. They did go into Vietnam and into Laos, and they had spray that came in, and for however they did it, it affected the weather and caused huge storms that wanted to bog down the Viet Cong. And it was very successful, but it bogged American troops down too. Subsequently, that was in 1967 when they passed that law. Subsequently, they've been working on this. I don't know enough about it. I was a friend with an astronaut, Jerry Carr. He was commander of Skylab 4, and I never asked him about it, and I really regret that, because yeah. Anyway, if I had known better, I would have asked him about geoengineering. But I look up in the sky stuff. I see trails that don't go away and evaporate like water trails. I've heard people say that their ground has been tested, farming ground, and there are minerals in there that shouldn't be in there. What those minerals are, I can't name because I don't know exactly the specifics of that. But if you can change the climate and you can block out the sun like Bill Gates has indicated he'd like to do, and there are articles about that I've seen, then I would say that it is a danger. And if that is a danger to the population, then I think that there should be laws that come into play to prevent geoengineering that's going to be hurting the population. And no matter under what guise, climate change or whatever, I think that it's wrong. If it's going to have a bad health effect on the people and on our soil, on our water, on our land, on our air, I just think that's a bad idea.
Thank you, Steve. Mark.
I don't have a lot of opinion or knowledge on this either. But I'm open to it. I'm very open to reading and hearing more. And just last week, I was introduced to HAARP. It's the High Altitude Atmospheric Research Project in Alaska. Their ability maybe to create diabolical storms. And as some people allege, which I do not believe yet, that they could steer them and that maybe the North Carolina hurricane was actually steered. I don't believe that yet, but I am open to hearing this. There's a lot of mainstream media that doesn't want to even touch it. And multiple media sources, those who are listening to this on an alternative media, bless you, because everyone, and Steve's putting this out in as many places as possible, variety of inputs is very healthy. I'm a free speech absolutist. And when you have duopoly media that would like to be monopoly, and they're very tied to the establishment. If Trump gets elected, they'll get more tied to him suddenly. They are deceiving by omitting. They are sometimes deceiving by straight out lies. Steve, I thought your issue on climate was going towards something else, where I do have more knowledge. Anthropomorphic climate change, and whether man-made is really causing such damage that we have to take extraordinary measures to change that. And by the way, Bernie Sanders' measures are even beyond extraordinary. Okay, they're beyond the Overton window about what we should do. The Green New Deal of his and AOC's concoctions is impossible, and they don't even believe it themselves. Okay, they don't. But even short of that, the restrictions on industry, the restrictions on just you driving where you want, when you want, are out of line for this reason. There might be global warming that's been slightly caused by industry, okay? A couple degrees over 100 years. The ability for humans to adapt to a couple of degrees in 2 hours, okay? Just turn up the air conditioning, wear a sweater. We've been able to create much better lives for ourselves because of petroleum products, because of things that enhance our lives. Indonesia needs more industry, not less. Africa needs more petroleum fueled cars, not fewer. They will develop in very good, responsible ways. If the Western few elites in Brussels want to impose global things like the Paris Accords tried to do, they are hurting 90% of underdeveloped humanity. Those of us who are at the cusp of good developments almost certainly use our developments for good. Don't shut it down.
The,
Thank you, Mark. Go ahead, Steve.
yeah, I just think that what happened with Operation Popeye was they showed that the control of weather was a useful tool to control populations. That was really basically what the operation was about. And they were able to apply its use to modify the weather, and they did it successfully. And just like Agent Orange was used successfully as a defoliant, which is still being used through Roundup, by the way, and Monsanto Bayer. Anyway, kills insects and people and weeds and all this stuff. So what we have here is we have a 2022 White House implemented program, a 5-year research program into climate intervention, and it's going on right now. Having planes spray reflective particles at high altitudes to try to blacken the incoming rays of the sun to slow down climate change. Is that the way we're going to slow down climate change? That's my question.
Thank you, Steve. I'd like to let you gentlemen know that we're getting close to the end of this forum, and I want to ensure that one question gets asked, and I'm sure you'll all have something to say about it. And that is winning. If you win the election, what is your position? Should you win the election? Is there anything you would like to say that would help Vermonters and the country? Because you are a U.S. legislative position, you're running for that position, type of position. So the question again is there anything you could suggest that would help Vermonters in the country? Mark.
A lot, and they
Go for it.
coincide. And let me say, in the unlikely event that that win happens in 2024, the nation will be blessed. The nation will be blessed if any independent rises to break into the two-party system at the legislative level, Senate or Congress. It would be remarkable, and it would be remarkably good, because at least 40% of Vermonters are independent in political affiliation. At least 60% of Vermonters under 40 express no affiliation for the Democrat or the Republican parties. We are the candidates for you. And here's why we become monumentally effective if enshrined. And that is because you elected one of us. Matt Hill, Mark Stewart, Steve Berry, from almost nowhere, gives the rep in Congress instant clout. We don't have to worry about party orthodoxy. And you, the voters, don't have to worry about, well, are there donors controlling this new guy? We don't have big donors. We have your voice and only your voice, but it is freaking powerful, because the rest of the legislatures, who for the next 2 years are going to have to listen to us, are also going to be on notice. You could be next, you unyielding Democrat Party. You could be third in line, you intransigent Republican Party. The independent brings the best possible voice to DC and to the nation by being elected, or even look, coming in a close second. Okay, if one of us can help Bernie end up, probably still winning, but not with a majority. Plurality. All right, Bernie, you'll go back to the Senate with 43%, not 73%. If only 43% of Vermont is behind the marquee Marxist, it tells the whole nation that, hey, some of this has finally got to go. I use the term end woke. I have a sign here, but I won't display it now. But ending woke is a national value for 95% of us. That 5% extreme needs to come to an end. And Republicans aren't effective enough because they don't stand up when they're called racist. They're not. But when they're afraid of offending the women vote, or they're afraid of looking not politically correct. Independents don't have to fear how something looks. We fear how things are and how things are going under this two-party duopoly.
Thank you, Mark. So Matt and Steve,
You want to give the times?
Matt, you
Times
have,
remaining.
I'm sorry, Mark, what was that?
You want to show the times remaining? I think it's important. Steve's only got 2.
So
He should know that.
I'm
okay.
I'm going to let him know.
Matt's 4 and I'm something less than 10, but you can tell us all.
Steve, would you like to go first?
It does matter. I'm happy going first. I would just say that Bernie wasn't an independent, and he's not an independent, and we are independents, and that's what is what Mark just mentioned. We're independents. We don't have any money. Bernie has $36 million in his campaign fund. $36 million. Please take a look. That's $36 million. So we really are the voice of Vermonters and the people. And we're not fakes. We're not phonies. We're just as you see us. And we need to have campaign reform. We need to stop Citizens United. That has to be reversed. For me, this is already a win. I don't need a lot of wins. I've had a lot of success in things that I've done in my life, and success, quote unquote, you know. In other words, I have meaning in my life. I have a wonderful family. I have a lot of people that I love and that love me, and that's great. I just want to be able to be a thoughtful, caring servant leader. And if I was elected, then I would just rejoice in the possibility of helping people, which I do as a pastor. And that's all I really care about. And that's why I bring these topics up. And so I'm happy to be just part of this with Matt and with Mark and with Justin and with Bernie if he was here, and with Gerald Malloy if he was here. I have differences of opinion, but that we're not being censored today is really nice. And I would want us to have a sovereign Vermont, free speech, have our rights appreciated and respected, and continue with the US Constitution and the rule of law, which basically is going by the wayside. And I would want to help preserve that. And any way I can do that, still, elected or not, is a win for me.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Last but not least,
Last,
I'm going to cover a couple of the other topics that weren't discussed a lot. Under the war banner, I would like to express my deepest condolences to Israel for what happened with them on October 7th a year ago. And I stand by you unequivocally. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I stand right next to you. As far as the energy position, we need fossil fuels, and we need to have them readily available. They're the only guaranteed way we have to keep our lifestyle going. I am a big fan of renewables. Not as a crisis, but I am a big fan of them. I am a fan of conservation, and I am a fan of nuclear. Nuclear is not 3 Mile Island like it was 20 years ago, 50 years ago, when they're, back in the 70s. There have been lots of improvements with those, and they've been able to make them smaller. I would love to have Vermont consider that. The wind and the solar, I'm absolutely a fan of those, but I don't take as much of a crisis level as some of our government people do. As far as taxes, being a CPA, I'm relatively familiar with the US tax policy and the IRS and what laws I think are legitimate and what aren't. One of the big things that I've never pretty much heard before is I want to start taxing nonprofits. All these foundations, nonprofits over a certain size, all these foundations with big dollars never pay a penny of tax. I also am a big believer of not having a lot of nonprofits around the state because it bankrupts the state, or it hurts the state, and it really hurts the small towns because they're not getting taxed on property and things like that. I think it's a not a great thing, and we should revisit the types of businesses that can be nonprofits. As far as another tax, school debt. I am not a fan of giving people 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever figure that they want to do to reduce their loans. I am, however, would consider letting people tap into their 401ks or IRAs and not pay tax on them. That would save them roughly a 40%. That way you lose a little and the government loses a little, but the loans get paid, your after-tax dollars get increased significantly. Let's see, what was the other thing? Okay, as far as winning, having a CPA, somebody that knows and understands money in there is a big bonus. Having a health actuary who's on your side is a big bonus. Those are two big things that I can help Vermont with, and I believe in some form of universal health care that will also help Vermonters. That's as far as I'll go for my first year or two in there, and there will be plenty of things that I will be able to discuss once I know Washington a little better. I've never had experience in political. Well, I've never applied for a dog catcher because I don't want this country going socialist. Not that I care about universal health, not that I'm against universal health care or Social Security, because that lifts the small people, that allows them to live in their houses. We're going to have a bigger problem if we get rid of Social Security. But other than that, I don't want it be a country like Venezuela or Cuba where the government comes in and says, hey, Amazon, Disney, you've done a great job, but we're going to take it from here. That's the socialism that I don't want. And that's why I decided to run. There were 5 basically communist socialists at the beginning of the year. Fortunately, a couple of them have been defeated, and Bernie is the de facto leader. That's why I'm running. It's not going to affect me, but it will affect my kids and potential grandkids.
There you go.
Good job. Good job, Matt. Mark, you have 1 minute left. Would you like to make a closing statement?
I went from 10 to 1 with 1 comment.
You had 4 minutes left.
I'd like to use 3 of those at least.
No, that was, you go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
all right.
I might have a minute or 2 left that I can lend them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Or
look,
actually give you.
let me,
That was your clock, Mark.
so let me give kudos to Matt for bringing up the nuclear power, which is instantly an economic generator. It's a shame that they closed the plant in Brattleboro, and it's a shame that there's this derision for clean energy that is safe. 3 Mile Island, which was 45 years ago, we've improved our technology since then. The number of deaths, 0. Zero. The number of long-term illnesses caused by the 3 Mile Island, quote, disaster, zero. There's been an environmentalist lobby, which is basically used by Marxists to end up using feel-good terms to say, oh, we want a cleaner planet, and in the process, restrict you. I'm a libertarian about restrictions. We should have very few, zero from the federal government that are outside the Constitution. With that, I'll wrap up. I encourage people to use stewartforliberty.com. You'll see more of me there. Thank you all.
All right. Actually, Steve has about 10 seconds left. Steve, you want to say goodbye or hi or one last comment?
Yeah, my website is votesberry.com. That's votesberry.com. Take a look if you'd like. Thanks. Bye.
May I list my website?
Sure.
matthillforsenate.org is my website. And I've been told by a few people, including the interview that I did with Pat McDonald and Vote for Vermont the other day, which is on my website, that the website is pretty good. And I would like to say thank you to Nico, which is New England, excuse me, Northeast Kingdom Online. And they designed my website, and I'm very thankful for them.
I will tout this kind of forum. Thank you, Steve. And for those who'd like to see more of this, we have this Friday and Saturday, same channel. Jamie and Steve are moderating. You'll see 3 candidates, maybe even Bernie will show up, and you'll get more issues either way.
Gentlemen, that concludes the forum for today. I would like to thank you. You all did an excellent job. I'm sure the Vermonters are going to appreciate the opportunity to watch this video and see exactly where you stand on issues. So with that, everybody have a very nice day, and we'll conclude the forum.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, all right, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Barry.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks down in Manchester. Jamie, if you want to stay on.